This is State of Wisconsin versus Darrell Brooks, Jr., case 20 CF 2550, also calling 21 CF 4596 and 21 CF 5020. Appearances.
State appears by Jacob Corr and Michelle Grasso.
Attorney Robert Hampton appears with Attorney William Rakestraw with Mr. Brooks. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Mr. Brooks's cases were scheduled today before this branch and branch 10 for final pretrials. Mr. Brooks is currently set for trial in both of these branches on December 12th. My understanding is during the course of the morning, both the state and defense counsels met with branch 10, Judge Havas, and there was a discussion about what would happen this afternoon, and it's my understanding that there's going to be a request that we postpone the December 12th trial dates. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Your Honor. We all know where Mr. Brooks has been the last basic month, and over that month, just out of a courtesy, because he's focusing on other things, being his own attorney there in Waukesha, we didn't speak with him because he was busy. Since the verdict is read, got back in touch with Mr. Brooks, and we're speaking again, dealing with this case, but I'm asking for an adjournment so that we can now get into how we want to handle the case in front of Your Honor and also Judge Havas.
Mr. Corr and Ms. Grasso, is the state going to take a position on these requests?
No, Judge, given the circumstance that I don't think the state is going to object, the state would have been prepared on December 12th for these matters, but given the circumstances and the defense's inability to prepare, we're not going to object to the adjournment.
All right. At this point, from the court system's perspective, we've begun to make arrangements, and I discussed this briefly with counsel, with Mr. Corr today. The court had reached out to find larger, more dire space for December 12th, and we talked about Waukesha. The court had been kind enough to share a juror questionnaire. We talked about that. But I can't say that significant enough efforts have been made that it would cause problems to move these matters. And given the circumstances here in the events of the last month in Waukesha County, the court does understand why it would have been difficult for Mr. Rakestraw and Mr. Hampton to meet with Mr. Brooks and coordinate strategy on these matters. So for those reasons, the court will grant the request to adjourn these matters. Mr. Hampton and Mr. Rakestraw, at this point, should we be looking at setting new trial and final pretrial dates, or do you think the cases are going to move in a different direction?
At this point, I guess we set a status date so that we can figure out how we want to move forward and also discuss any possible plans, any possible options with the state if those exist.
Mr. Corr, Ms. Grasso, do you want to weigh in on that?
I don't have a position on that, Judge.
All right. From the court's perspective, that's appropriate because I think clearly if we end up setting another trial date for Mr. Brooks, that has to be the, in capital letters, trial date for these matters, and it's going to take a fair amount of preparation on behalf of the state, a fair amount of preparation on behalf of the defense, and a fair amount of preparation on behalf of the court system. And so I think that setting a status date to make sure that that's where we're going to go. I also think that on that status date, we'd set the matters in both courts on December 12th, and it may be that in the future we need to revisit setting the matters on the same date in both calendars. That's a decision that state, defense, and Judge Havas and I can continue to discuss. But at this point, I do think it's appropriate to set these matters for a status hearing. Given the Thanksgiving holiday and the holidays that follow, realistically, Mr. Hampton, Mr. Rakestraw, and counsel for the state, how much time until we know where we're going on these?
we look at the second week of January, is that possible?
Judge, the challenge for at least for me, is the beginning of January, the first couple weeks, I'm pretty booked up. My first open week in January is the 16th.
And I know we just discussed that Mr. Rakestraw on another matter is in intake on the 17th and the 19th. I know we set, and I don't know what, I set a case for Mr. Hampton on the 17th. Mr. Rakestraw, I think we set something on the 18th, didn't we?
Correct, at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so do we want to use that date? I think you had been available a little bit earlier than 3, weren't you?
Your Honor, so I have a sentencing at 1:30 and then have a motion with you at 3. I
Okay.
imagine I'll be here, I can easily be here, I would hope by 2:30.
That's fine for the state.
On the 18th of January?
Can we look and see how that would fit on Judge Hobbs's calendar?
I believe it's a trial week for Judge Hobbs, Judge.
Yeah. I guess if you said you had a sentencing at 1:30?
Correct, Your Honor.
Let's take a look.
The 19th and 20th, I believe would work better for Judge Hobbs' calendar. I think both the state parties could make that work.
I'm wide open this one.
I think the reason you're wide open on the 20th is because that's the First District Judge's annual meeting, and so I have a couple things on my calendar, but I think that I'm not really sure how.
And I'm in here on that date.
You may be lonely. All right, so
How about the 19th?
but I thought Mr. Rakestraw had intake.
I have intake right now.
Can we do 8:30 on the?
Do we have any transportation issues?
Well, I guess that was a conversation I was going to have as to whether or not. I presume at that point, Mr. Brooks is likely to be at Dodge.
That makes most sense. But he does want to physically be here in the courtroom for all hearings.
Okay, then let's pick a different date.
Just as we're having that conversation, I imagine that as he would now be in the prison system, he would fall under the normal prison transportation rules. So I don't think that it should be.
What about the afternoon of January 26th?
I am gone that week teaching.
I'm sorry.
This week. For a whole week.
How about the 2nd or 3rd of February? 2nd's better for me, but
I can do the 2nd anytime before 10:30 and anytime after 11:30. So
Fine by me.
I guess Judge Hobbs may have a Zoom week. I don't know exactly.
Well, but if it's just for scheduling, I guess if Mr. Brooks is produced in person here, we can communicate with Judge Hobbs's clerk if we need to set those dates.
That'd be fine. I mean, she could always appear here too, in this courtroom, just for that hearing too, if that's necessary, obviously.
All right.
If she's okay with that, I'm okay with that.
So Thursday, February 2nd, should we do this at 1:30?
Sure.
Fine.
All right. So for today's purposes, we're going to set case 20 CF 2550 on my calendar on Thursday, February 2nd at 1:30. We'll set 21 CF 4596 and 21 CF 5020 on Judge Havis's calendar on that date, with the understanding the lawyers and the judges will be in communication. Mr. Brooks will be produced if Judge Havis is unable to accommodate an in-person hearing in her courtroom. We could have her come down here, or Mr. Brooks could be present physically in this courtroom and Zoom in from here.
Judge Havis's clerk just sent a text that that date works for them.
Okay.
Just interested in knowing if it's in person or by Zoom.
Mr. Brooks will be produced. All right, so next court date, that's February 2nd, 1:30 p.m. in room, and 20 CF 2550 will be in room 113 of the safety building. The other two cases will be on Judge Havis's calendar, room 504 of the courthouse. Anything else we need to address this afternoon, Mr. Rakestraw or Hampton?
Nothing.
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Core or Ms. Grasso?
No, Judge, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon. I presume that's Mr. Dotson at Kettle Moraine. Couldn't hear me. Good afternoon, Mr. Dotson.
Yeah, I will.
Let's just double check. I have someone on the 5th floor. Can you tell me who you are, sir?
Daniel Adams.
Good afternoon, Mr. Adams. I don't show you on my calendar. Let me just double
I think
check.
he's got a prelim judge in, so I think he's supposed to be in prelim court.
That would be my guess, because I know that I've done a bail review hearing, and that was. Yes. So if you could let the CO know, your case is not in front of me at 1:30. It's in preliminary hearing court, Mr. Adams.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. And I assume this is Mr. Allen in the House of Corrections?
Yeah.
Good afternoon.